when it was first coming on, that experience for you on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense was it for you, Sarah?
Oh, I would say it was definitely like a 7, where I was having trouble with my words because it was so distracting, the sensations in my body.
And us slowing down and taking a moment to kind of lean in and just acknowledge it. Where is it now?
Probably down at a 3.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we want to be here in service to all of you. We can't do that if we're revving at a 7 on anxiety internally.
That's right.
Hey there, my name is Neha Sangwan. I was trained as a mechanical engineer and then became an internal medicine physician. Don't be too impressed, all that means is I'm a really good Indian child. What surprised me was that at the end of my medical training, when I should have been most excited about my career, I found myself on a very different path, straight to burnout. The good news is, this breakdown became my breakthrough, and my healing journey has inspired me to build my dream job. I discovered my true passion to help awaken people to their personal power and then empower them to live it. Welcome to the TalkRx podcast.
All right, guys, we're going to do a take 2 there. Now, as you take a few deep breaths and you took that sip of water, how are you doing now? If you could, when it was first coming on, that experience for you on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense was it for you, Sarah?
Oh, I would say it was definitely like a 7, right? Where I was having trouble with my words because it was so distracting, the sensations in my body. Right.
And us slowing down and taking a moment to kind of lean in and just acknowledge it. Where is it now?
Super helpful. Probably down at a 3.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we want to be here in service to all of you. We can't do that if we're revving at a 7 on anxiety internally.
That's right.
So taking a moment, and anyone in the chat, are they writing any of the symptoms that they feel when they get uncomfortable?
We have 2 people saying they feel it in their lower back.
Okay, great. So what you want to do in that moment is your body is talking to you, and this is going to come a little bit later in the burnout experience. These are early signals. Now, before you think about them in the context of nervous, burnout, any of this stuff, I need you to pay attention, because tightness in your chest can mean something physical as well. So you don't want to just skip over it and say, oh, I'm anxious and excited. If it persists, your first thing is to make sure you are clear medically. Okay. Once you have a clear bill of health, now we can talk about things like, am I anxious, excited? Is it burnout? Is it what is this? Okay. Here's a really good tip to know. This is not normal in our corporate world, but listen, in a few years, I'm hoping it is. That when I get in front of a room, when I get in front of a room, I can say, hey guys, really excited to be here. Oh, my chest is a little tight. Let's take a few deep breaths. This one's for me. And we can all do this together, because wouldn't it be cool if we could take risks together, if we could be that transparent with one another? And it wasn't a sign of weakness. It was actually a sign of knowing ourselves, self-managing ourselves, and being connected to one another. So thank you for those of you that have shared. And I'm going to let Sarah do what we call a take 2. So she, just like your favorite movie, but your favorite movie wasn't made on one take. It had a million take 2s, and that's why it's so good. So Sarah, take 2.
I love it. Thank you so much, Neha. So Sarah Waylett, just left my corporate job at Accenture, 17 years. And started Dreamgarten, which is really a new way of working. And actually, one of my dreams is what Neha just described, right? Is to be able to show up at work in a different way. And that way would be in a mindful way and a creative problem-solving way. And one of the reasons that Dreamgarten works so well is that when you combine mindfulness, which actually completes the stress cycle in the body, like we just did with my own body, right? We took a deep breath. I actually shook my hands a little bit. I took a sip of water. I actually brought myself back into my body. And then, right, design thinking is this beautiful way of creative problem solving that actually addresses the stressors coming at you, right? And we can use those in a different way to be super creative about how we actually go out into the world and work together and collaborate. And so it makes me so excited to work with folks like Neha, who have the same vision as I do, to bring this out into the world. And the way that, it affects burnout, we can use this for anything, but the way that it affects burnout is very specific about that mindfulness and completing that stress cycle in the body. If you don't complete stress in your body, it stays, it hangs out, it lives in your organs, in your systems. It's there until it gets completed. And we don't make good decisions when we're in fight, flight, or freeze. We actually make really poor decisions because the majority of our blood is not actually in our brain. The majority of our blood is elsewhere in the body in order for us to fight, to take flight, right? Or to freeze, depending on the stressor that has just come at us. And so when we use mindfulness to complete that stress cycle and bring ourselves back into a place of balance in the nervous system, we can make better decisions. And using design thinking to make those decisions is actually a beautiful way of creative problem solving. And we'll share more with that with you today around that. Thank you, Neha.
Awesome. You're welcome. So when I told you that I realized my whole world changed at the intersection of physical health with mental, emotional, social, spiritual, which includes communication, which includes burnout, which includes wellness.
Yeah.
Sarah has put together a unique way of using mindfulness with design thinking to help access your own creativity and healing. And so what we're going to start showing you is multiple ways to access information and to gain your own inner wisdom. In a world where the president of a country says something different than the governor, says something different than the mayor, guess what that means? It means you have to figure out what you believe. And we're here to help you figure out how to do that.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
From what you're sharing, it sounds like building a lifestyle that kind of helps me not to burn out is going to be an ongoing process and something that is more lifelong as opposed to like something that can be fixed. So Sarah, you mentioned a couple different times you've experienced burnout. So do y'all, as a younger person, that is a tiny bit discouraging that, oh man, I'm going to experience burnout a lot more times before this is over. So I guess just, is that what you're saying, that we need to build this into a lifestyle so that that burnout doesn't occur multiple times? Like can you just talk me through that?
Okay. So Jamie Claire, in life, you're going to fall off the horse. We're all going to fall off. I'm going to fall off again. But the key to life becomes how quickly do you get back on and how quickly do you pick up the signs? And so what we're doing is we're giving you the clues to pick up the signs early, to recognize what's happening. So I burned out in 2004. I think I got close again in 2007, 2008. But I got back on the horse and I didn't go to burnout. There have been times in my life where I've said yes too many times and realized, oh boy. And that's when I went and asked for help and hired more people. So it's about recognizing it. It's not that you're instantly going to change who you are if you take on things that are too much, but underneath, you got to heal your heart. You have to heal that maybe you think that your self-worth comes from you doing for other people. So there's an underlying healing process that has to go on in order for you to pick up the signs and signals and catch things early. So we're not advocating that we have the answer to everyone. We certainly have the tools to help you become aware earlier. Sarah, your thoughts?
I 100% agree. I would say it's all about recognizing the signs. And then what I will say for me personally, it is that driving sense of I'm not good enough unless I'm achieving. And so my journey was what Neha described the first time I went on an LOA, I was finally diagnosed with anxiety. Well, I'd had anxiety my whole life. I just didn't know what to name it, right? So that was a journey to figure out anxiety, but there was something underneath the anxiety. It wasn't just like, let's put a label on it and then it goes away. That's not how it works, right? So the journey was then the next time it was like, no, wait, this is deeper than that, right? Like I actually had PTSD induced anxiety, right? So, and then, right, like every single time I would get this southern nugget and I'm very, very much like an overachiever when it comes to like full on burnout, like exhaustion, can't function, right? Which is probably why I'm doing what I do now, right? But what I will say is recognizing those things, having the tools are so important. Most people don't even have the tools, which is why it's so important what Neha and I are doing, right? Is just be teaching people these tools, but getting underneath and really understanding the drivers of the behaviors, right? Because your body is reacting to those stress responses. Chronic stress makes you less responsive and able to get back into balance as quickly. So then it's a cycle and a snowball, right? But you can't stop that cycle unless you know, one, how your body works and how to actually stop the cycle in your body or complete the cycle of stress in your body. But that doesn't make the stressors go away. And if the stressors say, hey, take on this another project, and you keep saying yes because you believe that that's your worth, and you believe that that's how you prove that you are enough or worthy to be of love, of recognition, of accomplishment, whatever it is, you're going to keep doing that until you change the mindset that says, actually, I'm good enough even if I say no to that and take care of myself. Actually, I don't have to live my life at that pace because it's not healthy for me. Actually, I can be mindful all the time, and I can use creative problem solving to do this in a different way and still be able to, right, create space in my life for the things that make me healthy and that serve my family, but that also I can achieve something that maybe I need to actually start by redefining my definition of success, right? Instead of just chasing the standard of success that everyone in society thinks that we should chase as women, right? Like there's so many factors, but I think it's the tools, right? I think it's the recognition of the signs. And then I think it's getting to a place where you recognize that there are things that are physiologically happening. There are things that are happening emotionally, physically, spiritually, like all of these things, but there's these underlying core beliefs that drive your behaviors. And if you don't change the underlying core belief, and this is true for me, then the habit continues, right? For me, until, and I'm in the process, very deep process of changing many of those core beliefs that my whole life has been built on. And guess what? They're all lies, by the way, just all lies.
And you know, the thing that I'd say to you too is, you saying no to something, I would say, you want to ask yourself, what does that mean I'm saying yes to?
Yeah.
So it's not just getting the power to say no. It's like, listen, if I say no to taking on another project, okay, what am I saying yes to myself for? Oh, I'm saying yes to a good night's sleep. I'm saying yes to a weekend with my family in nature. What are you, every time you say no, you can focus on the no, or you can focus on what you're saying yes to. And that might help you, because none of us like to feel rejected or feel like we have to say no to somebody else. It's just not a great feeling. But when I can say, you know what, thank you so much for the invite to go out tonight. I think I'm going to say yes to resting and watching my favorite show on the couch. And so there's a loving way that we can say yes to ourselves and what we need, and it not be about rejecting someone else or someone else's offer.
And it's a beautiful reframe, Neha. Like she literally, that's the perfect, right, example of another reframe, right? And is yes, you're saying no. What are you saying yes to? Is a total reframe, right? But and even if you choose to, you could use those words as a way to allow yourself to say no in a positive way, right? I'm saying yes to this instead, right? I have a choice. It is my right to choose. I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing myself. And by choosing myself, this is what I'm saying yes to.
Yeah.
So
including yourself in the equation is really the most important piece that we have to get people back into, not just choosing your mind, but choosing your body, your mind, your heart, and your soul. If we think in the world that faster is better, wouldn't all of us together, like all of me, not just my mind, moving in a certain direction, wouldn't that be faster?
Yeah.
If our inner world and our outer world could move together at the same pace. If we could get error messages letting us know that something's off or wrong. Let's say your life was you barreling down the highway at 80 miles an hour, and suddenly the check engine light comes on. Would you, A, pull over, pop the hood, and get to work? B, treat it like you treat the low fuel gauge, you've easily got another 40 miles. Or C, slap a piece of duct tape over the check engine light, because we wouldn't want to interfere with your texting now, would we? Who are you when your metaphorical body gives you a check engine light? It gives you the lower back discomfort, the chest tightness, or for me, the throat constriction that happens. What is that for you? If you don't know what it is, if you don't know what that error signal is, no problem. You know what it tells me? It tells me you're a pretty high achiever, because you have successfully overridden your body's ability to stop you. So that doesn't mean, oh, what's wrong with me? How come everyone else knows what it is and I don't? It's, oh, wow, I'm really good at working, so much so that I ignore my own self-care. And these are, at some point in your life, you may have needed this to be successful. In our world right now, we need to upgrade your inner human software to meet the fast-paced, ever-changing world around you. So those two things need to come together, and we want you to know what these error signals are and start to recognize them inside you. So anybody in the chat, please tell us, were you the person who, A, when the check engine light goes on, you're curious, you pull over, you pop the hood, you figure out what's going on? Are you the one who says, I got 40 more miles? Or are you the person who just says, until this is a real problem, I have other things I need to get done? So A, B, or C, who are you? And Jamie Claire, feel free to jump in if anybody is.
We
is
have
right.
a lot of letter Bs, and then a couple of As, but they are admitting that they were a C for a long time. So,
So they're recovering Cs, and now they're just into their the quarter of the empty fuel tank. Okay. For those of you that don't know what the signal is in your body, I want you to grab your AirPod case. Next time you go out for a walk, grab a really comfortable stone that fits in your hand. When you're on your next set of meetings, I just want you to hold that and notice when something happens for you. If you can't feel something in your body, like, oh, how did I know that? You can't feel it. I want you to feel the stone in your hand, the AirPod case in your hand. That is the opening to the rest of your sensations. Okay, so really simple tips and tricks. We're going to get you there. Let me give you a quick story of me in a few lines. I told you I went to engineering school, went to medical school, now went into residency at 31 years old. I was supposed to be on top of the world, but I was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and exhausted. I went right into being a hospital doctor. So I'm an internal medicine physician who takes care of people in the hospital, which is essentially residency continued. Except now I have a paycheck that's 4 times what I was getting in residency. So that doesn't exhaust you any less. You can just pay your bills. So no surprise, I burned out 2004, June 17th, 2004. And I didn't even know it was happening. Literally, the nurse, Nina, was like, hey, Dr. Sangwan. Well, I said, Nina, could you please replace the patient in 636 IV potassium, give him 40 milliequivalents? She said to me, Dr. Sangwan, are you okay? And I said, yeah, why? She said, because that's the 4th time you've asked me that same question in under 5 minutes, and I've answered it for you every time. I had no recollection. That is exhaustion. That is me hitting a wall of ineffectiveness and not even knowing it. What we're going to show you today are the stages of that, and we're going to give you a taste of a few things for your own awareness and answer any questions that you have. So there's this worldwide epidemic of burnout, and the best way I can explain it after the last 20 some years of sorting through it, healing it myself, and helping tens of thousands of other providers in healthcare, as well as leaders in business, as well as everyone, including younger children, heal from this. What I've learned is that it's a net, the simplest way I can say it to you is this is about a net gain or drain of energy on 1 or more of 5 levels. It's happening on a physical, mental, emotional, social, or spiritual level. For today's purposes, let me really quick explain something that's an overview that takes something really overwhelming and just simplifies it. The triad of burnout is defined as physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. If it was just physical exhaustion, we'd all be there, right? But it goes further than that. It's someone who's exhausted for a prolonged period of time who then starts noticing cynicism creeping in. So that means you're going to have thoughts like, you know what, it doesn't matter anyway. All the effort that I've got going on, it's not really helping anybody. Every day I do the same thing, like no one notices. When that cynicism starts creeping in, pay attention. And lastly, you go to where I was, which is hitting the wall of ineffectiveness and not even knowing it. Does that mean I can't hack it? I'm lazy? Any of the judgments people might have around burnout? No, it means I was a really hard worker who blew through all my own body's signals, just like my medical and engineering training and my Indian family upbringing taught me. If you set your mind to it, you can do anything, girl. And I was like, oh, forget my body, forget my heart, forget my spirit. If I set my mind to it, I can do anything. Now in the world, we are starting to realize that is not so true. And so burnout doesn't happen all at once. For those of you that think you were fine in the morning and now at night you're collapsing on your bed and you're burned out, that's not how it happens. Burnout is the system of feedback loops in your body. You may have been missing the early signals that we talked about already. There's 3 phases. The alarm phase is the first phase. And what that is it almost feels like you just jumped on a treadmill that's going a little bit too fast. And so it's those kinds of symptoms, like your heart racing, skipping a beat. It's almost like when you get cut off in traffic. It's like that moment, but it's going on now in your life for some prolonged period of time. When that continues, you start to adjust to that faster pace of being, and you start to think you're staying up at night, not sleeping very much, having a low level anxiety, being fatigued all the time, feeling heavy, headaches. You start to think it's normal. And you are going along and you are now in the adaptation phase. And then something like COVID comes along and you get tipped right into the exhaustion phase and you go sliding down a slippery slope to ineffectiveness. Is that because people can't handle it? No, it's because they've been handling it for a really long time. So one thing I want to make sure you know is anybody that has judgment against what this means about you, that's theirs. People being bored is different than being burned out. Being bored means you're staying in your comfort zone too long and not taking any risks. Burnout is you kind of making it all happen and wanting to get things done and showing up and sometimes stretching yourself. And that leads you to running out of energy. So where are you, darling? Where did you experience burnout? Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Neha. So what I would say is I call myself a burnout overachiever because I tend to make this a habit. So I have realized very recently, actually, that typically what happens in my cycle is I'm an overachiever of most things and have chased the next big thing constantly in my career. And so the first time I collapsed from burnout was in 2007. And it was because I was for the past, for the, I don't know, 9 to 12 months prior, I had been traveling 100% of the time as a consultant, halfway across the country. I was also at the same time pursuing my yoga teacher training. So spending at least one weekend a month in full 8-hour intensives, right, on top of the travel. And I was also gunning for manager, which is the first executive level of a consulting company. Those three things in and of themselves would put anybody in a place of alarm. I was pursuing all of those 3 things at the same time. And so my adaptation phase was probably that 7 to 9, 9 months, right? I made manager. I got my yoga teacher training certification. I actually got a new role that was a non-travel role, and immediately hit exhaustion. Had my first like panic attack that put me flat out on the floor, where I thought I was actually having a heart attack, that I was gonna die. And then realized that it was panic, and that the cause of the panic was literally going to open my laptop. Every time I went to touch my computer, I would have a severe anxiety attack. And I hit that exhaustion, ineffectiveness, immediately. It was like I fell off of a cliff. And then that was the first time I took a leave of absence from a company. And I say the first time because I've done that multiple times because of my need for achievement.
I'm going to skip here and ask people who might be feeling what you're feeling here. Let me talk to you a little bit. I wasn't going to show this today, but I'm skipping ahead on the slides. What happens when you go to a traditional provider in that moment, like you're speaking about? A typical prescription looks like this: some time off.
That's right.
Some combination of medications to either help you with being depressed, help you with being anxious. The Ativan is anxiety, Prozac. It doesn't have to be these drugs, just some version of it, or Ambien to help you sleep. Maybe some stress management class, or if someone's really progressive, they'll tell you to go in nature or do some yoga, right? What did you get given when you went on your stress leave?
All of those things.
Yeah, right. So
Right
now, so what I want you to know is there's nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
This is
That's
this is the emergency prescription. So what the traditional medical world will do is pull you off of the cliff of falling out and put you back on the cliff. And what I want every one of you to know, that if you've experienced any of these phases where you're starting to see yourself, you're starting to know you have these symptoms, once you get back on the cliff, it's almost up to you to figure out how to heal. Otherwise, 10 days later, you go back into the ring for round 2 with no new skills.
That's right.
And that's what we are going to work not only with you on, but that's what my upcoming book on healing burnout is all about. It's about customizing it to you. It's about giving you the tools that took me 20 years to figure out, because my colleagues, we were never taught about it in medical school. So it's not that we don't want to help. It's literally that no one ever taught us what you do once you get people out of those symptoms. How do you help them heal? Want to get off the cliff? That's a good thing, to be able to sleep again, recover. If you need antidepressants, you need anti-anxiety, it's fine. But in parallel, you need to be doing your own exploration about where are you losing? Where are you having a net drain of energy on a physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual level? And if you do those things together, you will not only get well, but you will not be in a recurring revolving door of burnout. Like I said, when you have symptoms like this, you definitely go to your doctor first, your provider first. If you get a clean bill of health, you don't have any heart issues, anything like that, then you're still having this. They say you're fine, but you don't feel like you're fine. This is when you start paying attention to, oh, could this be a drain of energy on an emotional level, a social level? Am I in the right job? Am I connected to purpose? Have I outgrown my community? Have I outgrown my relationship? Is this the way my body's talking to me? And this is what the alarm phase looks like. The adaptation phase starts getting more serious because the alarm phase has been going on for a while. And when you're getting to the end of the adaptation phase, you start not feeling anymore. You start having cynicism and apathy and moving into like, I'm out of here. And then exhaustion, there's no question about it. You need a professional with you. It is when you're having difficulty functioning, you are debilitated, you are depressed, you start to move into hopelessness, and some people even go to suicidal ideation. What I will tell you is, if you get the right help, this is not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough. And that is part of what Sarah and I want to have you have an experience of right now. So Sarah, assuming that people are not in that crisis place, because if they are, what I want them to do is exit and get help. If you're in one of the earlier phases, or you're just in your life curious about a way to tap into mindfulness that can be productive and give you wisdom about yourself, tell us how we do it.
My version of mindfulness is anything that we can do with in less than 10 minutes. A lot of people talk about mindfulness, right? They give you that yoga prescription, and you got to get in the car, you got to take the class, and it might be 90 minutes. You got to drive home, you might want to shower, right? Like, so this is a long process, and that's not, I actually think that we start with little systems. So one of the ways to just really truly start with mindfulness is 10 deep breaths. 10 deep breaths takes 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's it. Why don't we do it? I love it. So,
and by the way, when you breathe, it's not just breathing in any way that you breathe. It's actually feeling gravity pulling you down. And it's actually, when you breathe in, softening your abdomen so that all the rest of the muscles in your body relax. And when you breathe in, your abdomen should get bigger. Ladies, I know we're supposed to have Spanx and suck it all in and all. No, none of that is here. Let your stomach and your abdomen relax. And as you breathe in, you want to let them expand. And as you exhale, you want your belly button to move back towards your spine. I could give you a whole session on the physiology of breathing and why the best oxygen exchange occurs at the bases of your lungs and why this brings in your creativity. So just taking a moment to center, and Sarah's going to lead us through 10 slow, deep breaths.
So just first feel your feet. I know it seems like a strange thing to say when we're talking about breath, but first, anchor your feet. If your feet aren't touching the ground, find a way to maybe sit crisscross applesauce in your seat, and or just put your feet flat on the ground. Pull the belly in and up, stack the spine as if someone had a string that was just pulling on the top of your head from the base of your spine all the way up through the crown of your head. And then you want to take a big inhale, probably like a 4 count. So you can do that with yourself so that your mind is not wandering, right? So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. You can hold at the top for 2. And then exhale even longer. So more than 4, if you can go to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. Exhaling longer than inhaling actually allows the nervous system to calm even further. So 10 times with big inhale, fill the belly up. Feel that string pulling on the top of your head. Hold and release. And sometimes when you release that breath, allowing some sound to exhale, to come out with the exhale. So something like allows some of that sensation or any of the cycle of stress that may still be living in your body from whatever happened before the session to actually complete. Keep breathing.
And even all that it took to get you to this session, what you needed to do to make it happen.
When you've gotten to 10, just notice, right? That's the next thing, is just to allow your breathing to return to normal. I see a couple of people moving their neck. Maybe they've noticed a little tension that was being held there. Maybe there was a little tightness in the hip. Maybe that expansion of the chest allowed some things to relax in the shoulders, in the chest. And then for you to sink further and be rooted more towards the ground, but as well feel taller somehow through those breaths, right? We root and we rise at the same time through 10 deep breaths.
Something I think is going to be really helpful is people think, oh, that's for people who do yoga or woke people or new age people or whatever people are saying. I just think that it might be helpful for me to explain to you a little bit about what you just experienced scientifically. So take your fingers and I want you to feel your rib cage, your clavicle right here. Then I want you to feel right down your chest, all the way down to the front of your rib cage, and feel how far down it goes around your back. Do you feel how far the rib cage goes down there? That's how big your lungs are in your chest. The only purpose of your rib cage is to protect your lungs and heart. When you go around all day, hey, can you get me that? Is the deck done? Hey, do you want to do that in 5 minutes? Okay, you're using this much of your lung capacity. So it's not about somebody being new age. It's not about someone doing yoga. Okay. It's about when you take a nice, slow, deep breath, the best oxygen exchange occurs at the bases of your lungs. And when all right, so you have a muscle here, thin muscle. It's called a diaphragm. It's below your lungs and above your stomach. It's umbrella shaped. And when you soften your abdomen and take a nice deep breath in, that umbrella shaped diaphragm has to contract to make space for the air. When it does that, it triggers something called your vagus nerve, which slows down your heart rate, which gives you a sense of calm, which opens up creativity in your brain, allows you to have different ways of thinking. This is why Sarah is having you enter through mindfulness. Okay, so for the thinking part of your brain that wants to know why are we doing this, that's why we're doing it.
So that's one of the easiest ways. One of the other ways that you can actually bring mindfulness, and one of my favorite ways is actually to, and we may not do this today, but I'm going to give you a little tip. Your favorite dance song on your iPhone, right? No one's watching, and you shake your whole body, right? When something like earlier happens to me, when my chest feels like that, I was shaking my hands off camera, right? So I was actually going like this.
Yeah.
But my body is trained, right? That when I start shaking, that those sensations settle down. I'm able to feel everything in my body. And once I'm done shaking, usually it's only 3.5 minutes. It's a really good dance song, right? Anything that has a nice upbeat, right? And usually we start with the feet. Neha knows, right? In Koya, we teach shaking. We start with the feet, with the left and the right foot. Then we get air underneath. We move up to the knees. We move into the hips. We move to the belly. We use the chest. We shake out the shoulders. The only thing we don't shake is the head. Right? Keep our head safe. But that is one of the ways that I have trained my body just to release whatever those tightening sensations are, right? The idea that my nervous system is all of a sudden in a state of vigilance.
Yeah.
And once I shake, I can return and actually also find my breath.
Let's tie everything Sarah's been saying together. So, number one, emotions are energy in motion. They need to move through you. When you suppress them, or there's something you don't deal with, it gets stuck inside you. Then, as human beings, we get up, we get out of bed, we do it the same way every time, we brush our teeth the same way, we go to the bathroom the same. So our body starts moving in these very patterned ways. And what Sarah is speaking about is when I take my hand and I say, shake my hand, what I'm allowing my body and my muscles to do here is free up from the ways that I mechanically have moved and created neuronal pathways through my system where things are stuck, where things are patterned. And when you do this and you take it to your whole shoulders, like she was speaking about, and your hips and whatever, until you're finally just shaking it out to your favorite song, like a doll, a rag doll, you're not supposed to be J-Lo, okay? You're supposed to be letting your body do whatever it wants to do and whatever it wants to move in a way it has never moved before. So the goal is to make a mess, okay? It's not to look perfect. You allow
That only matters how it feels in your body. It does
Right.
not matter
And
how it looks.
And so that's an important distinction for you to know, which is this isn't about being a dancer. This is about moving your nervous system and your body in ways that it doesn't typically move. And that frees up. You might feel things a little bit more, things that were suppressed. You might be like, oh, wow, like I can feel more joy, or I feel a little bit of anxiety. Maybe I've been holding that back, right? So just know that as you start to tap into your body, you're also going to start moving things that are stuck. So give us could you take us a little bit into the design thinking and how that works once people figure out how to get mindful and in the present moment?
So design thinking is for me just a really fun set of methods. So a very structured set of methods that create freedom in the process. So I always say there's freedom in the structure, right? So design thinking methods create this beautiful structure for us to have amazing new choices to make, right? It gives us something different to look at. It changes our perspective.
If you were going to ask all of us a question, like, and do this with us, because I want them to just do it along with us. What would you ask them to bring to mind?
Well, I mean, why don't we go with the mindfulness piece, right? How might we? Let's use the how might we. That's the ultimate reframe, right? That's what we use in design thinking for the reframe. Is how. So that's the solution, right? That all the options of the solutions that we're looking for. Might is like, we might do this, we might not. It's cool if we try something and we fail. It's on purpose, this word might. And then we, even though you're doing this for yourself, it's the collective we. It's your support system we. It is the
So
we
it's like
as
on a piece of paper,
That's
I
right.
just written this. Is that what you want?
how
Like-
might we. That's right.
Okay.
That's
So
right.
so any of you
So-
that are writing, she's gonna ask you a question and you're gonna write how might we, as in you and your support system. And then what should we be asking ourselves?
Well, I think for mindfulness, how might we incorporate more mindfulness into our days? That's pretty
Okay.
simple, right?
And what are we gonna do now? How long do we have and what should we be doing?
Yeah, so we'll just take 5 minutes. We're going to do the Lotus Blossom method. So you have your question, how might we incorporate more mindfulness into our days? What you are going to do, if you had sticky notes and Sharpies, it might look something like this. Sticky notes and Sharpies are the design thinking facilitator's best friend. We love them. Your how might we question is in the center. There are 8 boxes around this. Think of 8 different ways you can answer that question, 8 different ideas for how might we incorporate more mindfulness into our days. When you do that, we're going to take 3 minutes, but I just want to take 1 minute and say, you can take those 8 ideas and you can continue to blow those out further for further detail around how you might decide to incorporate some of these things. You might pick 4, you might pick 2 to start tomorrow. And if it doesn't work, you go back to your list because you have a ton of other options and you're experimenting with what might work.
So Sarah, as they're going to keep going, I'm just going to tell you that the first thing that came to me is I'm no longer getting up in the morning with a nasty alarm that makes it seem like the fun is over. I'm changing it to my favorite dance song and I'm going to dance my way out of bed. So for me, that's going to add more joy, take no more time. The other thing I wrote is when I was young, what did I love to do? I love gymnastics. So now when I do my to-do lists, I'm doing them stretching on a yoga mat with all my Post-its around me. And then the other one that I wrote that is if I do it with a friend, if I do it in connection to someone else, I'll do it because I don't stand people up, but I have a tendency to stand myself up.
That's the power of that we, right? That is you saying we can do this together. And again, if I go back to your statement, Neha, about if we all showed up to a meeting and said, hey, let's take 10 deep breaths, or hey, you want to take 3 minutes and just shake our bodies before we even get started? Like, what would that do for each of our nervous systems, but also for the collective, right? Every single time, if we started with that.
Well, you
right?
also have to believe that it's going to take you out of that anxiety and that tension and that I into the we and relax you into the
Wow.
creative. Let's take a moment to read what people are writing. Jamie Claire, could you highlight what the group is sharing?
Absolutely. Sarah added that she likes to dance more, which we all need more of that. Robin says she wants to stretch 3 times a day. Somebody said beginning the day before their tasks actually have to start. Pet their dog and their cat in between difficult business meetings. Spend 5 minutes to become still and become aware of everything outside and inside. Accept it all. Walk around outside the house 3 times a day. Get away from tech. Deliberately stay in the moment by suspending judgment. Spend time with friends. Find 3 things I'm grateful for every day. Morning affirmations. Putting technology away.
These are so wonderful. I mean, and you can see how they're all little systems. Like none of these are difficult. None of these are getting in the car and spending 3 hours. It's like, right, petting your dog. I mean, that's genius. And also it helps you with your heart rate. It makes you feel joyful. It lets you let go of what happened before and move into the next thing with mindfulness and being present for the folks that you're actually meeting with, rather than thinking about what came before, or even sort of thinking about what comes after, right? That's the magic of mindfulness. And then design thinking, this is just a tiny pace, but right, we just came up with how many ideas is that, right? Like 25 ideas in less than 2 minutes around how might we do something a little bit different, that ultimate reframe of how might we, and then using this for creative problem solving, and then really thinking about this as an experiment. Take a couple, try them out tomorrow. If it doesn't work, go back to your list and go, you know what, maybe I'll tweak this thing. Maybe I'm going to try that the next day and see what sticks. Because when you think about those things as little systems, I think if you start taking 10 deep breaths every day, that at some point you're taking 10 deep breaths and you're petting your dog and you're taking a walk in nature and you're building on those little systems to create that mindfulness throughout the day, not just the one time you choose to do it, right? So when we think about this as not black and white, not all or nothing, not right success or failure, we think about it as options, and our bodies are constantly changing, our lives are constantly changing, right? So
Well,
what
these
used
become
to work,
touchstones. These are like
that's right.
touchstones
That's
throughout the
right.
day. Awesome.
That's
Well,
right.
I want to respect everyone's time. So thank you for being with us.
Yes,
Bye,
take
guys.
care.
And any feedback, we'd love to hear it. So please send it our way. Whatever.